Let's get ready to rumble!
Hello and welcome to Netflix vs. Cinema, the podcast that this week has just shown that once again we will speak to anybody who shows us 5 minutes of attention. Joining me, my name is Tosin, I am your host, based up in the United Kingdom in the middle of a place called Bromsgrove. Joining me as always from the Isle of Wight is Sharon Bollen.
Hello.
And joining me is a man who once took away all of my film credibility points because I recommended a film called She's So Lovely. Then gave a couple of them back because I recommended a Gerard Butler film called Greenland. And has taken some of them back again because I actually like Marvel's The Eternals. That man is my cousin who has shown us some attention online, telling us about previous podcasts. So now, guess what? He's here. It's Taiwo Bello.
Hello.
How you doing, man?
I'm good. You well?
Doing good. Yes, I think you're the latest one in people, like whenever we have any sort of interaction that shows that people might be listening to us somewhere, we're like, be a friend, come on the podcast. Tell us what you think. We promise we won't argue with you because you've been nice to us.
I thought I'd wait till I was on before we discussed fees. So.
Okay, I'll tell you
And
what,
you have
right?
video evidence of it.
Yeah, okay, I'll tell you what we'll do. Taiwo, right? There's 3 of us on this episode. You can get a third of whatever money we make off this podcast episode.
It's very generous of you. Yeah.
It's the way we roll here at Netflix vs. Cinema. We believe that, yeah, you've done some work. You should get something.
And that's a third of the gross rather than just the net.
Exactly. Whichever one is bigger, you can do. And somebody else can even do the math, which means that you get the best thing. But speaking about people who get in touch with us, Sharon, it's happened again. So, Taiwo, I'm not sure if you've noticed. I know you've been listening to the podcast, and feel free at some point during this to give us a review of why on earth you started listening and why you've kept listening.
I'm assuming this is fan mail for Sharon again.
It's like proving that you've been listening. Proving that you've been listening. So no, okay. So what happens is that Sean gets the fan mail. Sean gets the fan mail. Sharon gets the people. I think because what we started doing is that we started putting our reviews, like video reviews of the individual things on Facebook and on YouTube. And Sharon is the one who gets comments on her YouTube reviews where people go, oh wow, by the way, and obviously Sharon, you said something quite intelligent, and everybody, I believe that Sean would be fine with me saying this, that out of the 3 of us, if you want intelligent conversation, you go to Sharon. And and so people have been grappling with the things that you say in an intelligent way, going, oh yeah. And so on your review of The Most Reluctant Convert by the C.S. Lewis movie,
Yeah.
we had somebody who actually wants to get who wrote quite a thing. I think there's a guy called George Hill. I think you can tell that he's from reading this. You can see that he's a C.S. Lewis fanboy. And just look, he has 7,000 subscribers. Who is this person?
Oh.
But he wrote on your review, I found the film to be most intellectually profound. I found the film to be the most intellectually profound examination of Christianity I've ever heard. Since I've watched the film, I've read several of his works, Weight of Glory, Surprised by Joy, and others, and I am deeply shocked. I'm shocked at how deeply these works have struck me. If I wasn't already converted, I'd be converted all over again. Is this propaganda? No, it's self-examination and an examination of Christianity and how he came to finally accept it. C.S. Lewis had a very unique mind, and he takes you in a linear progress from atheist to Christian in such a way as to reach anyone that actually pays attention. 5 stars? 10 stars.
Wow, good.
Yes, so yeah, that's you getting some more like interact, and I'm just waiting until the next thing I put up and I get just some more abuse. Speaking about that, okay, so what we do at this show, if you don't know, is that we usually go to the cinema, we see a couple of things in the cinema, we see a couple of things at home, and and then we rate everything out of 5, and we say, where has the money been better spent this week? Was it better spent getting out of our houses, going to the cinema, or was it better spent just staying at home? And this week, even before I went to see the film that I was going to see, I got abused about it. Because I went to see, so in cinema, we only have one film in cinema this week because life happens. I believe Sharon, you were planning, you had plans to see Death on the Nile yesterday.
I'd even bought my ticket and it was on ready to go, and then events overtook us.
Oh no way! You actually had the ticket and everything.
I actually bought the ticket, yeah.
Oh, that's actually painful. That hurts me in a like. Okay, I mean, Sharon, I've spoken on the podcast before about how the area of the tribe I'm from a certain area where we're called the Ijebu people.
Yeah.
And us spending money is painful enough, but spending money that doesn't actually, where you don't actually get to enjoy the thing you paid for, that hits me in a very, very sort of like raw place. Hits me in a very raw place. So, but you were supposed to see Death on the Nile.
Death on the Nile, yes.
Yeah, and we already had superfan Nina get in touch and say, "Oh, what do you think of Death on the Nile?" And I was already going, "Oh, well, listen to the podcast this week because Sharon will tell you what she thinks about it." And it turns out that we haven't done that. But back to the abuse that I got. So I was because on Tuesday nights, as we've said, like nowadays with the way life is, and I'm sure Taiwo will speak about your cinema going habits or not. Yes, I'm not going in a second. But so Taiwo, you have a young daughter. She's coming close to 2, isn't she?
He's 2.5.
What?
Oh.
When did that happen? Okay, never mind. So, okay, we'll put aside me being a terrible uncle for a second. And she's 2.5. So obviously life has changed for you in the past 2.5 years. And with me having a 1-year-old in the house, it means that I can't go see 2, maybe 3 films a week as I used to. So I get to see 1 film a week, and it's usually on a Tuesday night after tennis. So I was at tennis, and people were talking about the fact, and I was talking about the fact that I do this podcast, and people were like, "Oh yeah, so what about it? What do you think about this?" And people were asking me because there were a couple of young guys there. They were like, "Oh, did you see Jackass?" And we spoke about this. I was like, no, didn't see Jackass. Never saw it when I was on TV, even though I was right in the wheelhouse, right in the I think the age range of the
demographics that we're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. That was what I was, but even then I was like, why is it fun seeing people get hit in the nuts? and I was just kind of like, I don't get it. I still don't get it. And so people were like, what film are you going to go see tonight? And I was like, I'm going to see Marry Me. And they're like, what? I can't believe you're going to see Marry Me instead of Jackass. And I was like, wait, whoa, what? I think that is a perfectly reasonable choice. But anyway, that is what we saw in the cinema this week. I saw Marry Me. Sharon, you didn't see anything in cinemas, but what did you see at home?
I managed to see the entire season of Reacher on Amazon. Reacher, he who said nothing. And Taiwo, so you're coming on here as a guest. What are you bringing out of the gate? What are you showing to us this week?
I'll be bringing Last Chance You from Netflix. So 5 seasons to summarize.
Wow.
All right, cool. So we will get into that. But first, before we go into that, let's just have a little bit of a talk, because every now and then, I'm not sure if these happened before you started listening, Taiwo, but every now and then we would get a bit philosophical about a title, about Netflix versus cinema, as to whether, there is actually a fight, and whether it's what's happening, how our viewing habits changing, and all that. Now, you and when I asked you to come on this podcast, you said you were like, oh, I don't know about that. I haven't been to the cinema. Tell me what you said about your cinema going habits.
Well, that's the thing. So I think we had Maya about 6 months before the pandemic started, and then before that, we normally go to watch, maybe one film every month or every couple of weeks, depending on what was coming out. Then we had Maya, and then pandemic hit, and that was it for cinema. And then it was, right, A, when can we go to the cinema? B, when can we get someone to look after Maya while we'll go to the cinema? Because I can't go on my own. Katie would not allow that in the slightest. So, which is understandable and very fair. So
she's like, so you're not going there and talking about a film without me not knowing about it.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Got it.
Exactly. So the last film I saw was 007. Like, yeah. I was like, oh, that's been a few months now. And what's even worse is I'm finally going to be getting around to seeing Spider-Man. on Saturday. I bought the tickets. Like, I'm going, come hell or high water. So
is this with Katie?
yeah. Oh yeah.
All right, cool. Have you guys managed? Have you managed to spend all this time avoiding spoilers?
Yes, I think I'm quite fortunate that I'm not really into social media. So yeah, I've managed to stay away from spoilers. I've even stayed away from all trailers. The only thing I know is that in this one, it is Spider-Man and Doctor Strange is in there somewhere. Why he's in there, no idea, or what's going to happen.
Cool. Well, we liked it. Let's put it. we'll leave it at that. We liked it. Well done for avoiding spoilers. But okay, so if I brought the central question of Netflix versus cinema to you, when you hear that, do you think the question is stupid? Do you think that there's a fight? Do you think, oh no, I definitely prefer this? What do you think?
So I think pre-pandemic there was a clear fight ongoing. I think after the pandemic, that fight cinema's been weakened significantly, particularly because of the behemoth that is Disney. I think because of, they're so big as a group, and because of the way they've behaved in bringing out films and then releasing them within 5 or 6 weeks of them being at the cinema. I think it's just become, I think they've decided their battle's not going to be in the cinema, their battle's going to be on the streaming services, and they're starting to focus more energy towards the streaming services as well as some of the big cinema releases as well. So I think, although cinema will be staying, it's not like going extinct. I think, yeah, that battle's almost lost for cinema. Sadly, that's just what it is. So, yeah.
Although it's funny that you say that, because today the news came out that Disney are taking Encanto back to cinemas.
Why?
That is, this is the question at the heart of this Netflix versus cinema thing. Because when we speak about it, we talk about the fact that you have different things when you watch something at home or on your TV as to when you watch something in the cinema. There's definitely a difference, and it's almost kind of intangible. It's not as easy as saying this plus this equals that, and it's So Encanto, they released it and it was in cinemas for a while, and as you said, I think it was probably out for about a month before next thing you know it showed up on Disney Plus. Then We Don't Talk About Bruno happened. Everybody started listening to that song in the world. Everybody started watching Encanto on Disney Plus. And I think because half terms are coming up, they're going, well, okay, I think there's more money to be made here. Go back to the cinema.
Sing-along showings.
Exactly. So things like sing-along showings, you can't do that at home. You can sing along, but not like with a group of people or anything like that. So it's one of these things that there's a bit of a trump card that I think cinema has that I don't think it's playing well. I think that there's a bit of a trump card and I think this whole thing, the pandemic, the rise of streaming services, has made people question, okay, what is it unique that cinema offers that TV can't do? And I still don't think cinema is focusing on that. I still don't think that they're doing it well enough. But how about you, personally speaking? If we say Netflix versus cinema, personally, forget about the wide world, forget about Disney having all the money and making all the good stuff. Personally, do you think that for you there's a fight between Netflix and cinema?
So is that me or Sharon?
To you, Taiwo. Sharon and I have talked about this ad nauseum, sir.
Yeah, so I think, as you've said, the fight still remains because there are still things that cinema can bring, and there's an experience of going to watch a film together in a group. It's a setting where you're focused on the film. You can't get the same sound or the same size screen as you can at a cinema at home. And there's just something of the event of going out to the cinema that just, I think, still is quite appealing for me. I don't know what it's like. Maybe it's, I can say we're part of the older generation, so I don't know what it's like for the younger generation. But for me, there's still quite a big thing of going to the cinema. So, yeah.
It's just the fact that okay, because I still think of Taiwo as a kind of my baby cousin, and he's just described himself as part of the older generation. So what the heck? What the heck?
That puts your life into perspective.
Oh. It really does. It really does put life into perspective. Sorry, I had a follow-on question.
It was when I realized that there's university students that are half my age. Yeah, no. I'm not a youth anymore. So
If you can half it and they're still adults, that's a bit of a downer.
Oh, okay. We're gonna move on quickly. We're gonna move on quickly from this depressing topic. And let's kick off in cinema as we traditionally do. So in cinema this week we have the film Marry Me, a film that is Jennifer Lopez back in rom-com territory, because Jennifer Lopez is she's a performer. She's an actress who, for a while at the beginning, it was kind of like, because she had the acting career and she had the music career going, you weren't really sure what to make about her, and then she sort of plowed this furrow where she was like, romantic comedies, that's what we do. The Wedding Planner, Made in Manhattan, all this sort of things. And so for a long time you thought what you're going to get is a down the middle Jennifer Lopez romantic comedy. That's what you're going to get. It was her and Jennifer Aniston fighting for who was going to be the queen of the mediocre romantic comedy, quite frankly. And then Hustlers came out a couple of years ago, and all of a sudden it was like, oh my god, give her an Oscar, oh my god, she's actually good again. And this is her back in romantic comedy territory, but with a crazy plot, which Taiwo, have you heard the plot of this film?
yes, because you mentioned it last week before. Yeah,
I mentioned it last week. After mentioning it, I thought, you know what, well, there were 3 choices of films to see this week, and this was the one that had the most convenient starting time for me to actually go see it. But at the same time, I thought, I mentioned it last week, I might as well go see it. So she plays a world famous music star called Kat Valdez, and she is in a relationship with this guy who's called Bastian. And they decided they're going to get married. They write this song called Marry Me, about them singing to each other about them getting married. And they are going to get married on stage in front of the whole world, that is live streamed around the world to 20 million people at a concert. So she has a dress done, they have everything done, it's this big thing, and it's all going to go on. And then right before she gets onto stage, sorry, baby crying. Hang on a second. Claude? Sorry. Is she okay? Yeah, she's fine. Okay, cool, good. All right, so right before she gets onto stage, she notices that everybody's looking at their phones. Everyone's looking at their phones. And she's like, why? What's going on? Everyone's looking at their phones. So she speaks to her manager, and she's like, hand me the phone. And she sees that there's a video that's been released of her fiance, essentially cheating on her with her assistant. So she gets on there. She's right in front of the world, but she's somebody who's had this is going to be her 4th marriage. And so she's kind of like a laughing stock when her love life is a thing in the public eye and all that. And so she's sort of standing there on the stage. She's come out in this wedding dress. Everybody's looking at her, and then there's a guy in the crowd holding up a sign that's saying "Marry Me" because it's the name of the song. So he's holding up this sign saying "Marry Me," and she just sort of goes, "Yes, you, I will marry you." And he's like, "What the hell's going on?" And the only reason he's at the concert is because his best friend and his daughter dragged him along. He doesn't know her. He doesn't know her music. Doesn't know anything. And so this guy is played by Owen Wilson. He gets dragged up onto the stage, and she's sort of standing there, and they're like, "Do you take her to be your wife?" And he just looks at her and just kind of goes, "Oh, okay, fine." And then it's all about what happens. Yeah. That's what the line is actually. Do you, some guy, take Kat Valdez to be like, your wedded wife? And he's like, okay. And they're like, well, I guess that works. And
I kept thinking this can't be legal.
that's what I was thinking as well. I was thinking like this probably can't be legal, but they already had somebody. So, and they do address that in the film.
Oh,
okay.
But the fact is, and first of all, I was thinking, okay, that's just stupid. That's just something that someone has made up and put together and bent over backwards, turned into sort of pretzel shapes just so they can make this film work. And then you think about the fact that we have TV shows like Married at First Sight.
Yeah.
And this kind of stuff happens. So I was thinking, okay, maybe there's something in here. And so it goes into a little bit of examination of fame and social media and what that means, and if somebody is that famous, do they really have their own life, or is it actually just a prison? And it goes a little bit, it doesn't go too much into it. But the fact is, I mean, when you see that it's Jennifer Lopez, you see something called Marry Me, when you watch the trailer, you know what you're getting. You're not going in here expecting, like, a hard-hitting expose, satire of blah, 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 blah. You're not going to that.
It's not going to be Spotlight, is it? Let's face it.
It's not Spotlight. No, it's not going to be that. It's going to be a romantic comedy. Stuff is going to happen. That things like, there's going to be a roadblock in the relationship. There's going to be something coming together at the end. All these things, and all these beats of the film. So if you're going to watch this film, that's going to happen already. The question is, does the film do them well? So for me, I mean, from the word go, I'm saying, like, okay, this film, the highest star rating this film can get from me is a 3. So anything that happens after I go in to watch the film can only decrease it from a 3 to nothing. It's going to be a miracle for this film to have anything in it that's going to elevate it to a 4.
Yes. So basically, it's not a case of you're going to be adding points. It's you're starting at 3. I'm going to start knocking things off as we go along.
Exactly. I'm starting at 3, and if you start doing things that say you just made a 3-star movie even dumber, you get things knocked off. That's what happens. And some people think, well, a rom-com, rom-coms, they can only be a 3. But I saw a rom-com the other week called Playing It Cool that has a great cast and wastes them. It has Chris Evans in it. It has Michelle Monaghan, who I think should be a bigger star. It has Topher Grace. It has Patrick Warburton. And the film is rubbish. I mean, that's a film where you go, it's a romantic comedy, can only have a 3, and halfway through you're like, is there anything less than a 1? And
have you never watched one of those Hallmark Christmas films?
Oh no, those are hardly even films.
They never get above a 2. They never get above a 2.
You see, now that's what, if you're talking about a Hallmark Christmas film, the most it can be is a 2. The most it can be is a 2. But this film, Marry Me, is well done. I mean, Jennifer Lopez is at the height of her, look, I'm a film star, look at me, and I will carry this thing because I'm likable. Same thing with Owen Wilson. Owen Wilson doing his whole kind of like, surfer dude kind of thing, where it's just
the
kind
lovable
of like,
doofus. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's kind of like, it's a film that rises and falls on star power. If you didn't have Jennifer Lopez and Owen Wilson, I'm not sure it would work. And it's funny because I find at the end of the film, it says based on the graphic novel. And if you know anything about graphic
novels like that,
I know. And this is the thing. I was so shocked. I was like, what? Did I just read based on a graphic novel? So I went online, and sure enough, based on a graphic novel. So I went and I found the graphic novel, which you can buy for £4. Yeah, okay. So I went and actually bought this graphic novel to read it.
No.
Yeah. And sure enough, the graphic novel is a lot more cynical. The graphic novel is a lot more cynical. It's a lot more satirical. It's a lot more kind of like, the hard-hitting thing. Like the age of the starlet in the graphic novel is 24. So it's kind of like an impulse. So when she marries this guy, it's presented more in the graphic novel as a sort of impulsive Britney Spears type moment, as opposed to like, Jennifer Lopez has been married 4 times, all that kind of stuff. But I think that this film, I would recommend it. It keeps its 3 stars. It keeps the 3 stars all the way through. I think some of the musical sequences are great. Jennifer Lopez, there's a whole extended sequence of her on stage where you're just kind of like, dang, this woman still got it. She is still got it. You're like, she is. I would go to her concert. Essentially, that's the kind of thing that you do. I remember, and this is obviously, I'm a man who, when I saw Hustlers, I described her entrance in Hustlers as one of the all-time great character introductions in cinema history. But there's something about Jennifer Lopez. She can bring it. She knows what she brings when she comes to a project, and she does it here. She is likable. Her and Owen Wilson work really, really well together. You ignore the plot. You ignore all the things that are going to happen because you ignore the rush to the airport, you ignore the last minute declaration of love, you ignore all that happens. There's nothing in this film that happens that you do not expect. But it's just about how well it's done, and it's done very well. So I would give this a 3 out of 5. Not the best romantic comedy ever, but it doesn't disgrace itself either.
But it's interesting that it's at the cinema, because we have discussed this in the past as well on our shows, how we thought the day of the rom-com at the cinema was probably, because these are films that just proliferate all of the streaming platforms, that the romantic comedies are just filler, and they're everywhere. And so that the days of having a Four Weddings type film that is like the biggest film at the cinema, we thought those days are well gone. So it doesn't obviously hit those heights, but I'm interested the fact that they thought, let's put it on the cinema.
Well,
just go straight to streaming.
The thing about it is, okay, because if you think about the Four Weddings, taking Four Weddings as an example, Four Weddings was done at the time. It was the biggest film in that year, but also it was made with people who were not particularly recognized stars. Like Hugh Grant wasn't a massive name at that time.
No.
Andy McDowell wasn't a massive name at that time, and it was still. So I think the only reason this film was in cinemas is because it's Jennifer Lopez. Quite frankly, is because it's Jennifer Lopez, and you want to go see that star on screen. And but apart from that, yeah, I agree with you. It probably wouldn't find a place in the cinema. But okay, let me put it this way. Let me explain why this film is in cinemas. There is a scene in this film where you know the poster of the film The Graduate that has Dustin Hoffman, and then but he's framed in Anne Bancroft's leg. There's a shot in this film where you have Owen Wilson. It's kind of similar. Owen Wilson sort of framed in Jennifer Lopez's leg. And at that point, I heard somebody in the cinema behind me go, "Whoa!"
They weren't rubbing their hands together, were they?
Well, no, that's the thing. I'm not. Okay, because obviously there's a stereotype, but I think this person, and take from this what you will, I think this person was female, who just went, "Whoa!" And I was like, that's why this film is in cinemas. You want that as big a screen as possible because it's Jennifer Lopez and the woman is some kind of weird. Essentially, when you talk about movie star quality, how in the 50s and everything you could sell a film on movie star quality, Jennifer Lopez is one of the few people I think who can do that today. And that's why the film's in cinemas. But anyway, enough about that. Before I start talking a little bit more about what she did and a musical number that she performs called Church, which is actually they pretty much make a music video of it, and you're like, oh my god, the woman's amazing. Let's move away and let's go on to Taiwo, our guest presenter this week. We got a third one in. So Taiwo, you were going to talk about a show called Last Chance U.
Yes, I was. So,
and this is something that has come out of your love of sports documentaries.
Yeah. So growing up, loved everything sports, most sports, anything I get my hands on, would get involved and play it. And so interestingly, when just before uni, got involved in American football, and that's what kind of drew me to this, because I played American football as well. So it was just interesting, and just to see what happens within the march or the movement of people into the NFL. So the NFL, National Football League, American Football League, for American football. And so it was interesting because Last Chance U, Netflix documentary, started in 2016. What they did was they went to something called the junior colleges. So I'll just take a minute to just quickly explain the college system, because it's so complicated and so far devoid from what we have in the UK. From
anything in the UK,
Yeah. So what they normally do is you go to high school. So if you're a really good American football player, you play in high school, you get seen by a college, you go to the college, you play for that college, and then when you finish at college, you go into the NFL draft, and that gets you into the NFL. But what happens if either you go to college and you have a legal issue? So you have a situation where one of the students punched a girl in a bar and got thrown out of the college. You have an issue where you had some kids involved in burglary. You had another kid who wouldn't stop smoking weed and eventually got thrown out of college. What do you do? So what they do is they then go to something called a junior or community college to try and prove that they can get themselves straight, that they can manage to keep up with the academic work, to then give them another chance to go back into the bigger colleges, to then get back into the NFL. So it's almost like a second chance or last chance university.
Yeah.
So if you don't make it at that college or university, you're not going to make it into the NFL, basically. So that's what it is, and it's just interesting because it is very gritty and very raw. So you have the first 2 seasons are at a university called the Eastern Mississippi Community College, and basically you see, and they're very upfront about what these I say kids, young men have done to be in that situation. So they're very clear. Like, you had one who was involved in a burglary. You had one who'd been to jail and come back out again. And then you also had other kids in the community college, because it's cheaper than university. You can go to the community college and you can do a 2-year degree, almost like a bachelor's, before going to the big uni to do a master's, basically. But what I loved about the show is it doesn't shy away from the nastier side of things when it comes to college being a business. It's basically just a business. It is, these kids come through, they're there to entertain or to make money for the college, and they pass out again, and that's it. And they come in, the coaches use them because they want to be the ones who say, we won a state championship. They get to have a ring, the kids move out. And it's interesting because the first 4 seasons, so you have 2 years at Eastern Mississippi, and you have 2 years at Independence in Kentucky. Those first 4 seasons, the coaches, you can see, it's very evident that as much as they say they care for the children, they don't. They are very much all about results. If you can't get me the result I want, so
is it you're just fodder for my ambitions?
Very much so, very much so. And it's interesting because actually one of the assistant coaches tells the kids, "You're here to help me and my family get to a better college. So I'm using you." But then he says, you need to use me as well, though. You need to be clear that make sure you use my time to try and improve yourself to know where you're going.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that was interesting, because they're very upfront about it. Whereas you wouldn't get this in a normal NFL documentary, because the NFL's all about PR and shiny and clean.
Yeah. And this is wonderful. This is Americans' pastime, and this is puritanical. There's nothing wrong here.
Yeah. This is the dream.
What's a drug?
Yeah. What abuse? No. So it just shows that, and I think that's one of the reasons I really liked the show, because it made that clear. And what's very sad about it, and I had to catch myself thinking about it, was as entertaining as it is, it was then almost stepping back and realizing that these are real people.
Yeah.
And these are real men who are struggling, young men. I mean, they call them young men, but they still feel like kids because they're 18, 19. I mean, you had one example where you had one of the players was, he had two children by that point. It was at that college, and he would basically, because of childcare, and his wife at that point was still going through college, he would have his daughter in the pram in the at the stadium training. So she'd be on the sidelines, he'd be doing training, he'd hear her cry and have to run out to get her, come back again and keep going.
Oh, wow.
So it is absolutely brilliant. And I mean, just the first season ends on basically Eastern Mississippi. They're going towards the playoffs. They're doing really well. Their last match is against a rival community college. A fight breaks out, and literally all the players are involved. And because of that, they don't make it to the playoffs.
Oh,
and it's just like, wow. Like, and it's almost like you can't film it. This isn't a film. You couldn't put that in a film script. So you think, oh, that's ridiculous. But actually, this is what has happened and what's gone on. So that's the first 4 seasons. And then I think they kind of clicked that by the time it got to the 5th season, okay, we need to show that not all the coaches are horrible people. Because particularly, I mean, the 3rd and 4th season, the coach for Independence was just a horrible man, basically. And his stance was, I grew up in Compton, born and bred there. I played football there, and I know the hardships there, and therefore I'm just very hard, and I just say it as it is. And I'm like, no, actually, no, you're just not a very nice person. You are literally just the stuff he does. And he eventually gets fired at the end of the 4th season because of his treatment, his bullying of some of the young people.
Okay, well, so last chance, you've been enjoying it, and I was just telling you a little bit about how I saw it, and I wasn't sure whether it was a drama series like Friday Night Lights, or whether it was a documentary thing or anything like that. So the question I want to ask is this just X Factor with helmets and pads on a gridiron?
I'm going to sit on the fence and say yes in some ways and no in some ways. So it is because it's basically a group of people trying to show their talents for other people to see and, get paid from that. I think it's not because unlike X Factor, where all they do is they promote the person at the front, they promote the groups or whatever to say, look how great they are, look how wonderful they are. They actually show the kids in the light of they are. Like, they're very real about them. And I think one of the things that struck me was there was one of the players, Malik Henry. He's a quarterback. This guy is like an unbelievable talent. He got kicked out of the uni he was going to because there were some problems. He comes to this junior college, and you just watching, and he's just self-destructing repeatedly. So he's arguing with the coaches. He doesn't bother doing any of his academic work, which you have to do in order to get to the college stage. Yeah. And I think that's something you wouldn't see in X Factor. In X Factor, would definitely keep that under wraps, and maybe you'd find that out a few years later that this is what happened. So I think in that sense, no, that's.
But when you were talking about the guy who had his daughter by the side of the pitch and would rush up to go look at daughter and everything, that's total X Factor. That's the kind of thing that I imagine that X Factor would be like, oh look, sub story, crank up the music, how sad is this? Okay, with all that, it sounds like you really like it. How many stars would you give Last Chance U?
So I think I would give it a 4. I think instead of giving it a 5, I think I'll probably give it a 4 because sadly, I think it gets a bit repetitive. I think they went on a bit too long with it, and then they've now done a Last Chance U basketball one as well, which I haven't seen. Yeah. But I think from what it is, from what it shows, and for just how open and honest it was, particularly when it first came out, there wasn't much that was very open and gritty about. Literally, we've got cameras everywhere, and we see everything and every conversation. Yeah. And it's not filtered. I think, for what it was really good. So,
all right, cool. For that. Oh, and final question:
do you need to have an interest in American football to get into it, or is it just enough of a human story? Because obviously, for these young men, this is probably their one opportunity to raise themselves and their families in a broader sense out of the situations that they're in, into the big money if they get into the NFL. Presumably.
Yeah, I think it's no, definitely it's more of a human story because I haven't timed it, but looking at the episodes, the longest you get, they're normally about an hour long. The longest you have of them showing you what's happening on the field during a game is maybe 5 or 6 minutes. The rest of it is all about what's going on, particularly with also their academic teachers as well. They spend a lot of time with interviewing the teachers to show this is what they're doing to try and get them ready for college, as it were, or the big bad world. So,
yeah. Because presumably getting a good education will help improve their lot as well. So
yeah. And you meet one or two who do tweak onto that and decide that they're just trying to get to college to get a good education because they know they're not going to make it to the NFL, but at least they can get free education and a free scholarship.
Cool.
All right, now, okay, we spent too long on this and we need to move on.
Sorry.
But no, it's all good stuff. And I keep coming up with questions that I think are good anyway. My next question was going to be, how does it compare to All or Nothing on Amazon Prime? If you've seen any of those. But never mind, we don't have time for that. We got to move on. No. We got to move on. That's for another podcast. A podcast called Netflix versus Everyone or Netflix versus the World or something like that, where they put something on Netflix for something on somewhere else. Sport drama. Anyway, now we go over to Sharon. Sharon, now let's see if your internet connection can hold up for this. To go on to the final thing we're going to talk about this week, which, as you said, is Reacher on Amazon Prime, something that we have both seen, but you've heard way too much of me talking. So Sharon, take it away. What is this Reacher thing all about?
Yeah, Reacher is the serialization of the first of the Jack Reacher novels written by Lee Child. They were controversially made into 2 films with Tom Cruise playing Reacher, and it was controversial because physically he doesn't look anything like the Reacher who's described in the books. So for many fans of the book, Jack Reacher is 6'5". He's built. He was a former military policeman. He has skills. to use someone else's particular skills.
He has a particular set of skills.
And he basically is not Tom Cruise. So this is now taking it back to the source and saying, okay, we're going to take it back to the source. We're going to look at the novel again, and we are going to forget the films, and then we are going to start from the beginning. We're going to go back to the source. And the source of these novels, so this is based on the first book called The Killing Floor.
Yep.
And we come to the point where Jack Reacher is he's left the army, where he had a successful career as a military policeman. He is trained in special forces. He's served his country overseas. He's had medals. He's been honoured. And he's got his pension. So he's a man of independent means. But he has been grown up as an army brat. So he has always lived around the world. He's always been footloose. And so we meet him where he's basically decided that he doesn't want to have one base. He just wants to go where the fancy takes him.
Yeah.
And he's a fan of the blues music, so he's gone to a place where one of his favourite blues singers reportedly died. So he just goes off on this like mini South pilgrimage. And as he gets there, it coincides with a ghastly murder. And I know we hate it when that happens, but it happened. So he has then, because he's a stranger in town and there's this sort of ghastly murder happened, he is naturally a suspect. And the local pig ignorant police, as they often are in these small towns, they pick him up and throw him into jail. And then the story progresses from there as he feels he has a vested interest to find out what's going on. And then as the story progresses, you find out he's actually got much more of a vested interest than he first thought, and then we as the viewer first thought.
Yeah.
And so then it explores all those aspects, tying into his past, his previous relationships and his previous experiences, and how it lends himself to wanting to investigate because of his experience as a military policeman. Now, when we think of MPs in the British Army, they basically are picking up drunk squaddies and sort of wresting them out of pubs and into like the lockups. But apparently, in the American system, and the military policeman does investigate crime. He does have that investigative skill set. So he is using that skill set to see if he can uncover what's going on about this small town. And there's lots that go on in this small town that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
That this small place with seemingly has its sort of this great source of wealth, and it's all put down to the philanthropy of the local landowner. But then he's thinking, this doesn't ring true. So that has piqued his curiosity. So he then goes on to investigate.
Right. So, Sharon, could I ask, have you read any of the Jack Reacher novels?
I haven't, no. I have actually bought the first one because I had a birthday recently, and if anyone knows me knows that it's not a birthday or Christmas unless you have a book token. And I ended up with something like £60 worth of book tokens. So I have bought the first two Jack Reacher novels just so I can find out what it's all about.
What, did you buy them before watching the series or after the series?
Midway through, I thought,
right.
my friend is a huge fan. She's read every single one of them, and she's always been going on about me saying, you really need to read them. And I've always put it off. And then I started watching it. I thought, actually, because I'd seen the Tom Cruise films, I had no interest in reading them.
Yeah.
And then I saw this, and I thought, actually, there's a bit more to this than just what I thought initially. So, yes, I'm more intrigued. So I've bought the first two.
All right, cool.
I just asked, so is it taking place close to a military base, or is it just a town and there's no military involvement at all?
No military involvement at all. So when they see this guy, they describe him as a vagrant. He says, no, I'm not a vagrant, I'm a hobo. And in that sort of going back to the days in the sort of 20s and 30s where like sort of Woody Guthrie and all that, people there, they just took to the streets, they just took to the highways and byways. And because he's got this independent income, as in his army pension, he can afford to just drift with basically just the clothes on his back. He doesn't take anything with him but the clothes on his back. But yeah, it isn't connected to his army career at all. He has left that behind.
Okay, so before we get to star ratings, or before I say what I think about this, the thing about, because to be honest with you, the popularity of Jack Reacher, I find a little bit baffling. I find it a little bit baffling because he is written. It's essentially supposed to be like the mind of Sherlock Holmes in the body of Arnold Schwarzenegger from Commando, the movie Commando in the middle of the 80s. That's pretty much Jack Reacher, Sherlock Holmes' mind in that body, and when you hear about the different things that are written about Jack Reacher in the novels, you go, how is this popular? Like, it sounds ridiculous. Like, there's in one of the books where his peck is so hard it stops a bullet, and apparently, but I think that was Lee Child put that in probably in the 16th book or something. By that time, you were either with him or you weren't. And
yeah, if you'd made it that far, he could walk on water.
If you made it that far, it's like, yeah, he can do whatever he wants. Jack Reacher cures cancer with one look. Jack Reacher punches cancer in the face. But I have a friend, Simon Edwards Parton, who's written stuff about the show, and he sent me a message. Every now and then he watches something, he just sends me a message going, oh, what about this? Oh, did you see this or anything? And he says Reacher was pleasantly good. It felt like an updated 80s TV show. And that is the thing that I would say. I think more than that, I would say probably an updated 80s movie, an 80s cop movie, because it has a lot of the tropes that you would have in 80s police detective things. I mean, it even down to the fact that it has, like, you know, it has the inscrutable male lead who doesn't speak much, but for some reason everybody kind of, like, you know, the women can't stop themselves from, like, you know, being attracted to him.
Irresistible.
Yeah, it's irresistible. It has a telegraphed scene in a shower. You know this thing is coming from a mile off. And it's so 80s movie. The way that it is so 80s movie is like, it has the obligatory scene in a strip club. Even though it tries to do something a little bit more female empowering with it, it's kind of like straight out of an 80s. And I would agree with that. Like, it feels like an updated 80s film. So that's what I wanted to know, whether you'd read the books, because this is a character, and it seems like Lee Child has essentially just taken this archetype because the first book was released in 1994, so not that far from the 80s. Yeah, and he's taken it, and he's done something with it that has somehow become really, really popular. And I'm kind of shocked as to why this thing is so popular and has such a rabid following by people from all manners of work. But I mean, it shows that he's written something good. So, but with that said, I think I agree with a lot of what you said. I thought that it was actually really well done. There's 8 episodes. I think it goes quite well. There's some good characterization. I really, really liked some of the characters. Like, I think Roscoe I really liked.
Police officer, yeah.
Yeah, I like the police chief. I can't remember the name of the name of the character. Okay, I can't remember the name of the character, but he's the police chief. He's a black police chief in a white town. And there's something about him, Taiwo, that I have to be honest, reminds me of you. There's something about the shape of his head and the way he carries himself. It's like you with glasses. But yeah,
well,
yeah. So
I'll have to go and see this now, won't I?
Yeah,
to see if I can be offended or happy about
Oscar
that.
Finley, because I've got my little
Finley.
note here.
Yeah,
Oscar
Finley. Yeah, Oscar Finley. And
Played by Malcolm Goodwin.
Yeah, by Malcolm Goodwin. There's an actor called Malcolm Goodwin. Look him up. And I think I quite like the characterizations, and I like the way they put it together. But even like the bad guys and the plot, and it's straight up an 80s movie, but updated, and I actually quite liked it. So, Sharon, how many stars would you give it?
Yeah, I liked it too. I thought, yeah, because sometimes when it's an 8-part episode, you sort of in the middle, it's sort of beginning to flag a bit, and you're thinking, I'm sure we could sort of, wind this up a bit quicker. But yeah. I actually enjoyed it, so I would give it a 4.
I would agree with you. I would give it a 4. I particularly like the fact that one of the things I liked about it is that you see the detecting, if you get what I mean. Because there's a lot of things that's supposed to be detective shows where there isn't much detecting that goes on. Stuff just falls in people's laps, and they're like, "Oh yeah, oh there it is, we solved the crime. Oh, he's the greatest detective ever." No, he isn't. It's like it's some James Bond movies where you're like, how did he find that out? It just fell in his lap. He punched somebody and something fell out of their pocket. He didn't do any detecting whatsoever. But in this, they make a point of you seeing how the detecting is going on and how he finds a clue. Like, there's a clue that he finds in episode 1 that he just keeps thinking about, and it's not until like episode 5 that the clue pays off. And so I really like the fact that it's a detective show in that you can see the detecting that's happening, and it's not just kind of like this. Oh, it's around about time that the detectives solve the crime. Ta-da! There it is.
Yeah. I think I'd be interesting to I'd imagine they will make more series. It sort of has.
Oh yeah, they've already ordered a second season. Essentially, they ordered a second season of Reacher after the first one had been out about 3 days because the response to it was so positive that they went, go do another one straight away. So everybody's coming back. Well, not everybody's. Everybody behind the scenes is coming back because the nature of Jack Reacher is that he is a hobo and he is a drifter. And I think they do a good enough job with this show that if you understand that aspect of Jack Reacher's character, you are sad that it's very unlikely you're going to see any of these characters apart from Reacher himself again.
Mm. Yeah, because I was wondering if it's going to be, like the crime of the week, but with the obviously, but with the scope of the books, yes, I would be interested to see if you get recurring characters. But I would say in the nature of the beast is that probably not. But it'd be interesting to see because some of these characters are so popular that I would think, how can you not want to draw them back in? But we'll see.
I just realized what it is. That's what Reacher was reminding me of. It isn't Sherlock Holmes's mind in Arnold Schwarzenegger's body. It's Sherlock Holmes's mind in the Incredible Hulk's body from the 1970s, 80s TV show.
I was going to say, yeah, the Wanderer, just the Wanderer.
Yes, that's it. Jack Reacher is the Hulk from the 70s, 80s TV where he goes to a different town every week. Only this one is a different town every season. But, oh my God, that's what it is. That's exactly what the show is.
I think he did remind me a little bit of, I know it's a costume thing, but it reminded me of Sharp in some ways, how with the different Sharp, but not the Sean Bean, the book Sharp, who's quite different. And physically, he's quite different. But how you get these sort of like adventures in each book, that how he has a little cast of regulars who go with him. But the way that the character was built, I thought, he was the 90s hero really. So I could see elements of him in there.
Cool. So that brings us to the end of our reviews for this week. Where Taiwo, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Yes, and we usually at this is the point where we usually ask who won this week, but I think it's kind of obvious. It's a bit difficult when one of either Netflix Cinema only brings one thing to the table, or if because of life circumstances we can't be as big enough film buffs as we want to be. I mean, Taiwo, you've got an excuse, but I know Sharon, Sean, and I are borderline addicted, but.
Yeah, your care and responsibilities are like age 2. My care and responsibilities are like 88. So their own way, they can be just as demanding.
and I need to be constantly reminded that I have cares and responsibilities, and I'm not supposed to be in the cinema every single week. So until next week, when I don't know, we might actually get to see Death on the Nile or Uncharted or something else or something that might actually be released because it's seeming. Or Taiwo, you can come back and let us know what you thought about Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah.
You can come back and tell us what you thought about Spider-Man. But until next week, it is a goodbye from me.
A goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Yes, Taiwo, you get to do one. You've been listening, but now you get to do one yourself. Thank you very much for joining us. See you guys next week.